Hey guys, what's going on? Andy Baker here, andybaker.com, and owner of Kingwood Strength and Conditioning. And today we are going to do part 3 of our heavy, light, medium training FAQ, or frequently asked questions. So just as a reminder for you guys, if you're not familiar with what the heavy, light, medium system is, we detailed it out in pretty good length in practical programming for strength training, in the Barbell prescription. And then you can also check out my blog at andybaker.com, and I've got a bunch of free articles on there that also kind of spell out all the details of the heavy, light, medium system. So those are 3 good places you can go if you want to get kind of a bigger picture overview of what exactly the heavy, light, medium system is. But today we're going to finish up the 3rd part of our heavy, light, medium system. If you missed parts 1 and 2, in the description box below the video, we'll put the links to parts 1 and 2 there, so you can go check those out as well. So. All right, so we're going to try to hit these today pretty fast. So these are all a little bit shorter Q&As than last time. So first question, can the heavy, light, medium system be used for powerlifting or weightlifting preparation? And what I mean by that is competitive powerlifting or competitive Olympic weightlifting preparation. And the answer is, for the first one, absolutely. For powerlifting, heavy, light, medium systems make a really, really good way to organize training. It's very, very easy to organize a heavy, light, medium system around the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. So the way that I would probably set that up is to probably have like your heavy squat day on, say, Monday, and then you would do like a light or medium bench press following that, and then Wednesday would be your heavy bench press with light and medium squat variations, and then Friday would be your heavy deadlift day with light and medium squat or bench press variation. So you can make it very, very specific. You can squat 3 days a week. You can do a bench press variation 3 days a week, or you can just bench 3 days a week, or you might bench twice, overhead press once, or bench twice, incline once. But you can make it very specific to the sport of powerlifting and get a lot of frequency on the lifts. You could deadlift, say, 2 days a week, and then do something like a barbell row or maybe even a power clean on the 3rd day, or you could deadlift 1 day a week, stiff leg deadlift another day of the week, power clean a 3rd day. So you can pull from the floor 3 days a week, you can bench 3 days a week, and you can squat 3 days a week. And what I would do is just make one lift per day your heavy focus lift, and really attack that lift hard with high intensity sets plus a lot of volume. And then the other 2 lifts for that day, I would make them light or medium. And you can kind of play around. You can look at some of the other videos or some of the articles on my site, and you can figure out how to set up the light and the medium days. But that's basically the big picture overview of how I would do it. So I would have a focus lift for each day, and then the other 2 would be light and medium. So very, very good program for powerlifting. For Olympic weightlifting, the thing I would say about the heavy, light, medium system is it would be a component of your Olympic weightlifting program. In other words, obviously, if you're going to compete in Olympic weightlifting, you have to do a lot of practice on the snatch and the clean and jerk. And those are lifts that require a lot of practice and a lot of frequency. And you may need more practice and frequency on those lifts than like just kind of a bare bones general heavy, light, medium template gives you. But you could certainly perform your squatting in a heavy, light, medium template. As an Olympic weightlifter, you're obviously going to have to squat a lot in addition to the clean and jerk and the snatch. So there are elements of your program that would work really well in a heavy, light, medium program. So you could squat heavy, light, medium. You could press heavy, light, medium. And then you would probably need to do your competitive lifts with a little bit more frequency and probably a few more heavy days thrown in there to the week. But you could certainly have the squatting and the pressing component organized into a heavy, light, medium fashion, and that would probably work really, really well. So kind of yes and no on the weightlifting side of things. We're going to get into that a little bit more down here at the bottom on the power versions of the Olympic lifts. Can the heavy, light, medium system be used for bodybuilding and physique preparation? I would say yes, to a degree. I would not use it if I was training a bodybuilder, physique athlete. I would not be using that as the sole program for the bulk of the year. There's just too much other stuff that you need to do in terms of assistance exercises and kind of specialization on body parts for a 3-day-a-week full body program to be really effective for most of the year. You're going to need to split things up a little bit into probably at least 4 to 5 days per week. But there are times of the year where even a bodybuilder who's going to need to train with a lot of volume is going to do better to back off of the volume a little bit, maybe focus on strength a little bit more, and a heavy, light, medium system could work really, really well for that. So bodybuilding competitors and physique athletes, they do have to train with a lot of volume, but you can't go with crazy volumes all year long, or you desensitize to it in terms of, from a hypertrophy perspective. So there are times where you're going to want to back off the volume and train with a little bit fewer exercises, maybe a little bit less frequency, and a heavy, light, medium template would be good for that as kind of maybe like a short-term off-season type plan. And the reason it works well is because you can have more variation in terms of exercise selection than with some other full body type programs, and that would be really, really helpful. So being able to have multiple different types of pressing variants, multiple types of different kind of back exercises, rows, chins, deadlifts, flat benches, inclines, overheads, weighted dips, you can work those into there. All the kind of different variations, you can kind of mix and match them throughout the week, and as well as perhaps different squatting variants. So back squats, high bar back squats, front squats, you can kind of mix all of those things in there to have a pretty complete template. So in that regard, it would work pretty well. And then that kind of dovetails nicely into the next question, which is, what about assistance exercises? Or is there like an assistance template that goes along with a heavy, light, medium program? Yeah, I kind of have some methods that I use. I would say just in general though, when you're doing a full body type program, so like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whether it's a heavy, light, medium system or where it's some other organization of training where you're basically training the full body, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week. I love those types of programs. They work really, really well. The downside to them is that if you need some more assistance work, it's not a real efficient way to get it in. It's better to break things up into an upper lower split or some kind of body part type split if you're wanting to work with more assistance exercises. It's just the fact that after squatting hard and heavy, doing a pressing variation, and then perhaps a deadlifting or a heavy back variation like a row or something, you just don't have a lot of time and a lot of energy, because you're probably looking at 90 minutes just with 3 main exercises if you really attack them hard with a lot of volume. And for most of us, we're really trying to get in and out of the gym. I know for my clients here in the gym, for sure, we're trying to get in and out of the gym, in 60 to 90 minutes usually. So we don't have a lot of time, and you don't have a lot of energy to hit a lot of volume on the assistance template afterwards. So I'll kind of walk you through though what I do is in terms of assistance work with a heavy, light, medium thing. A lot of times, with these types of programs, you're doing a lot of squatting volume. The bulk of your training usually winds up being in the squat rack. So you're squatting 3 days a week. You're often going to be deadlifting 2 days a week. Some people may even be doing some kind of pulling or deadlifting variation up to 3 days a week. For most people, it's going to be 1 or 2, but either way, it doesn't really matter. You're already getting in a lot of lower body work with all the squat volume and frequency. So typically on these types of programs, we really don't use any kind of lower body variations or assistance work. The typical kind of bodybuilding lower body movements, your leg presses and hack squats and leg extensions and leg curls and all that. We really don't need a lot of that because of the frequency and the volume of the squatting that we're doing. One thing that I might do with some people is a higher volume of like lower back and posterior chain movements, lighter stuff, 45 and 90 degree back extensions, glute ham raises, reverse hypers. I'll throw those in there with some people in addition to this, because I find that the additional lower back work can be helpful in certain situations to kind of build up the work capacity for more and more pulling. And usually I'll put those, what this denotes right there is lower back posterior chain. Usually I will put those on Friday, okay? So if we're gonna be pulling off the floor and squatting 3 days a week, then I'm not gonna do anything in the middle of the week that's gonna put a lot more fatigue on the lower back. I don't wanna do that on Monday or Wednesday and get the lifter's low back all burned out. So I'll put that on Friday because we have 2 days of rest after that. So it just allows a little bit more recovery time for the lower back and the posterior chain. So if I'm going to include a high, because it'll usually be high reps, it'll be something 3 to 5 sets of like 10 to 15 reps, and that just creates a lot of localized fatigue in the low back and the posterior chain. So that just fits good kind of at the end of the week, and then you got 2 days off and you're done. The same thing with the back work is that we're going to typically be doing pulling variations off the floor, deadlift variations, rows, chins. Those are usually going to come kind of as part of the existing structure of the heavy, light, medium program. So I typically don't find a need to add a lot of more upper back exercises to the program. If I do, what I'll just have somebody do is just do more sets of what they're doing. So let's say their program is set up to where they're doing, rows, deadlifts, and chins, then I would just have them do more volume of those exercises rather than adding more exercises to the program. So if they're doing 3 sets of that and we want to get more work in, maybe we do 4 to 5 sets of each of those. So just increase the rows, chins, and deadlifts, and that'll usually get what we need. Same thing with the squats. Instead of adding exercises, I'll just add volume to the squatting. Do it a little bit differently sometimes for the what I call just the chest, shoulder, tricep area. If we're wanting to add additional work there, sometimes we like to use a little bit wider variety of exercise selection on those muscles. You can use the volume approach. In other words, if you're doing, say, something like heavy bench here, overhead press, and then like a medium bench or an incline press on Friday, you could just add sets to that, and that would probably work well in most cases. You don't need to add additional exercises. You could just increase the volume of those 3 movements, and that would be fine. But let's say if we want to add something like dips or a few sets of like dumbbell bench presses or things like that, I'll typically do the chest movements here. Okay, so this would be our heavy bench day, and then whatever kind of assistance or supplemental work we'll do for the chest here. And that works well because usually midweek is when we do our overhead pressing. So if we're going to do our overhead pressing work here, we can do some kind of extra chest work, and if we get a little extra soreness or fatigue in the chest, it's really no big deal because the pectoral muscles are going to rest a little bit on Wednesday, and we're going to be focused mainly on overhead work. And so same thing here, if we're going to do extra overhead work during the week, say if we wanted to incorporate like delt raises or like a seated dumbbell press in addition to your overhead presses, I usually stick them on the same day that I would do the overhead press. So we have supplemental chest work here, supplemental delt work here, and then the supplemental tricep work here. So if I want to incorporate things like lying tricep extensions or French presses or things like that, like usually heavy extension movements with a lot of volume to build up the triceps, I'll usually put them on the Friday or the medium day. And kind of the same thinking here with the low back and the posterior chain. A lot of times those movements create a lot of soreness and fatigue, and I don't like to burn out the triceps and get them all exhausted in the middle of the week where it's going to bleed over and affect whatever the pressing exercises is the next day. So if I want to do a bunch of lying tricep extensions on Monday after I bench and I blow my triceps up and get them all sore and fatigued, then that's going to bleed over and it's going to affect my overhead press on Wednesday. So my thinking when I'm putting assistance work into a full body template or a heavy, light, medium template is always what is coming up in 48 hours. So it's not necessarily what did I do earlier in this workout, it's what am I going to be doing 48 hours from now in the next workout, and is this exercise going to negatively affect that? If I do my high rep back extensions on Monday, if I do 5 sets of 15 on the reverse hyper on Monday, is that going to screw me up for deadlifts on Wednesday? Probably. So I'm going to limit that to put it in a better spot to where I've got the weekend days to kind of help manage fatigue, because usually that extra day of rest is really, really big. So just something to think about there. That's kind of how I go about thinking about the assistance type work. But really and truly, you're not going to add a whole lot to these full body routines. This is a big one right here. This is something that I've really worked with a lot of my clients. Being able to prioritize the bench press and the overhead press equally in these types of programs. So that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks of the 3-day a week full body program is typically what we'll have people do, and you don't have to do it like this, but typically what we do is we will have people either focusing on overhead movements or bench pressing movements. So the focus might be on a bench for a power lifter that's going to spend more time bench pressing is heavy bench, overhead press, and then like a medium bench here, like a close grip bench or an incline on Friday. And so sometimes what happens is whatever lift gets stuck here midweek and is only getting trained once a week, sometimes that lift tends to not progress as well as the lift that's getting trained twice a week. Same thing for a guy that's prioritizing his overhead press. He might do a heavy overhead press on Monday, a bench press on Wednesday, and then a light or medium overhead press on Friday. And his overhead press progresses really nice, getting trained with pretty good volume twice a week. But the one that he's only training once a week, the bench here, sometimes that stagnates a little bit. He has a hard time making that progress because he's only training it once a week, and there's only so much volume that you can do for a given lift productively in one session without having to kind of spread load that volume out throughout the course of the week. Most of the time, what I will have that person do, if possible, I will have them come in on Saturday and do a light or medium version of whatever lift they did on Wednesday. Okay, so if this lifter is doing heavy bench, press, medium bench, then on Saturday I'll have them come in and do another overhead press workout. All right, and that'll just be, I'll just say, okay, if we did 5 sets of 5 on Wednesday of overhead press, I want you to come in and do like 4 or 5 sets of 5 at maybe a 5 to 10% reduction in weight. So you have to take into account usually that it's being done after another pressing movement on Friday. So every lifter, depends on their recovery abilities, is going to be a little bit different, but usually 5 to 10% less is going to be about right. So if a guy came in on Wednesday and did 5 sets of 5 at 200 pounds, then maybe I have him do 4 or 5 sets of 5 at 185 on Saturday. And that would be maybe the only lift that he does. And a lot of times what happens with that, I've just seen it kind of with my clients over the years, is that they will come in on that Saturday and do the one extra pressing movement and then maybe do some conditioning afterwards, because you're already at the gym or you're in your garage or wherever you're training at, and it's like, I'm already here and I didn't just show up just to do 4 sets of pressing, so I might as well do something else. And a lot of times that turns into like, I'm going to go press 4 or 5 extra sets for this week, and then I'm going to go push the prowler for 20 minutes and I'm done. And that's kind of a way to also get you into the gym to do that extra conditioning session, which most people should probably condition at least once a week if you're an intermediate. So that can be a good way to work it in, and you're not having to try to find a way to do it during the week. So you've got your full body workout Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday is one extra pressing variation and push the prowler for 20 minutes and you're done. It's a short workout, maybe 40, 45 minutes and you're out the door. So pretty good way to structure the week. So something to think about there. Olympic variants. We touched on this a little bit earlier in the first question about Olympic weightlifting. Heavy, light, medium program is a really, really good way for a general strength athlete to incorporate the power versions of the Olympic lifts. They just fit really naturally into the heavy, light, medium structure. So and what I'm talking about is the power clean and the power snatch worked into the weekly routine with a deadlift. Okay, it works really, really well. We've got a bunch of different examples of this in practical programming as well as the barbell prescription. But obviously your deadlift is going to be your heavy pulling variation. You can power snatch for your light variation, and then you can power clean for your medium variation. And like we talked about in the earlier videos, just because they're light and medium day exercises, those 2 lifts, the power snatch and the power clean, will still be trained maximally. So you're going to power snatch as heavy as you can, and that might even mean max singles, but by nature the power snatch doesn't use very much weight relative to the deadlift, so it's a light day movement. It just doesn't create that much systemic stress. Same thing with the power clean. You're going to go ahead and power clean maximally, so that might even be heavy singles, but it fits nicely in that template. It's kind of a medium level of stress, and so that allows people, if they want to, I've used that a lot with track and field athletes. I'll have them pull once a week with a heavy deadlift for fairly low volume, and then I will have them do a pretty high volume of power snatches and power cleans as their light and their medium day variations, and that works really, really well because again, they're not Olympic weightlifters, so they don't necessarily need the practice and the frequency that an Olympic weightlifter does on the full clean and jerk and full snatch, but you need to probably be pulling fast off the floor a couple days a week in certain sports, and especially to kind of maintain your strength on those. A little bit of frequency is good. So this allows you to do the quick lifts twice a week, 1 power snatch, 1 power clean. If you really, really suck at one or the other, let's say you can't rack a clean, but you can snatch pretty well, then you can do like lighter snatches on your light day and heavier snatches on your medium day. So you could, or you could do the same thing with a power clean. So you could deadlift heavy, and then on your light day you just do lighter cleans, and then on your medium day you do heavier cleans. So you could power clean twice a week, and you could deadlift once a week, and that's not a bad pulling program. So, and if you're wanting to get better at the power clean or the power snatch, organize your training that way is a really good idea, because the frequency of doing each one twice a week can help quite a bit. So really, really natural program for a general strength athlete that wants to incorporate the power versions of the Olympic lifts. Heavy, light, medium combined with the Texas method or other intermediate programs. Yes, I actually do this all the time with people. So the Texas method, again, if you're not familiar with what that is, I would read about it. There's tons of information floating around it on the web, some correct, some incorrect. Lots of information in practical programming for strength training. But the Texas method sometimes works really, really well for one type of lift and not another for certain lifters. And so sometimes the Texas method doesn't work as well for, say, the pulling variations, like your deadlift programming. Not enough volume. Same thing with the squat. Sometimes the squatting needs more volume, or lifters just don't recover well from having the heavy volume day and then the heavy high intensity day, so that they don't recover as well from doing 2 heavy squat days in a week, and they need more volume that can be provided in the heavy, light, medium template. So a lot of times, I'll have a lifter do a heavy, light, medium squat program, and then have them do like more of a Texas method type program for their pressing movement. And sometimes that works really, really well. So really what you need to do is just kind of pay attention to your own programming and your own body, and kind of see how each lift category is responding to the different types of programming that you're doing. So if you're on the Texas method right now, and let's say your bench press is moving along really, really well, and you're training it heavy twice a week, but your squat is either stagnating, or you're getting too beat up from squatting real heavy twice a week, then you don't necessarily have to change your entire program. You can just change the squatting portion of your program to something where you really only squat hard and heavy once per week, and then the other 2 days are lighter and medium, and you can keep the twice weekly heavy benching variations, and that works fine. With the heavy, light, medium versus the Texas method thing, with the pulling part of the program, the deadlift has kind of always been programmed with or at least I've always kind of programmed the deadlift with a heavy, light, medium type of programming anyways, rather than a traditional Texas method program. So with the deadlift, I've never really used a high volume deadlift day and then later in the week used a higher intensity deadlift day. I've never really thought that would have worked well, in the same way that it works pretty well with the squat and then with the bench press and the overhead press. And so what typically happens with the deadlift day is, one, I feel like the volume from the squatting serves as a pretty good volume stimulus for the deadlift for a lot of lifters. But even so, when I have somebody deadlift on the Texas method, typically I will have them work up to one top set. Say, usually this is on Friday, on their intensity day. I'll have them work up to one top set, anywhere between a heavy single and a set of 5. And then I will have them do anywhere from 1 to 3 back off sets right after that. So they're kind of getting their volume stimulus and their intensity stimulus right there in the same workout, usually on Friday. And then on Wednesday, which is the light day, I'll usually do something with them that's not very low back intensive. So it'll be a pulling variation that's usually either a barbell row or a chin, so kind of more of an upper back movement. And then on Monday, which would be the traditionally would be the volume pulling day, that's usually a medium day exercise. It's usually like a stiff-legged deadlift or a power clean. It just depends on the lifter. I think for most people, stiff-leg deadlifts probably work better because they're not very good at power cleaning. If you're a good athlete and you're a younger guy and you're explosive and you can move a lot of weight on the power cleans, then the power clean can be kind of an okay volume day / medium day stimulus on that Texas method day with the volume squats. For most people, it's probably better to do a stiff leg deadlift. You're just going to get more out of it. It's going to be a little bit more stimulus for the deadlift. And so then what you have, you're training a Texas method program, but Monday is stiff leg deadlift, Wednesday is chins, and Friday is heavy deadlift. So you basically have a heavy, light, medium program anyway. So there can be a lot of crossover between the two programs anyway, but certainly just pay attention to your own training, and then you can go kind of one way or the other based on how you respond. Last question is training heavy, light, medium 2 days per week. Probably no reason to really do that. I know my friend and co-author Jonathan Sullivan has a program that he does with a lot of his older clients where they're just training on Mondays and Fridays, and they do a heavy, light, medium rotation where Monday is heavy, Friday is light, the following Monday is medium, and then they pick back up with the cycle the following Friday. So it's a 3-day heavy, light, medium cycle. It's just spread out over a longer period of time. I've never actually really done that. That's Dr. Sullivan's thing. I know he's had pretty good success with it. But typically if I see a client twice a week where I might only meet with them on Mondays and Thursdays, or Tuesdays and Fridays is how I usually structure it. Then I just have them do a heavy light program. So 2 full body workouts, and we'll usually do like a heavy squat on Monday, and then a lighter squat on Thursday, and then like a heavy bench on Monday and a lighter bench or an overhead press on Thursday, or however we want to do it. But we typically just do a heavy light type program. That just keeps things a little bit more simple, and it makes sure that they're exposed to a heavy lift on all of their exercises at least once a week. And so the only problem with 2 days a week, you just got to make sure you have adequate volume on all your exercises so that they can continue to progress. But yes, it does. It can work, but I prefer generally just kind of doing a heavy light system rather than a heavy light medium system if you can only train 2 days a week. So that is the heavy light medium frequently asked question, part 3. Again, if you missed part 1 and 2, look at the description box below. We'll have links in there. And then also, if you go to my blog at andybaker.com, I have this entire video series, all 3 parts, in an article format. So if you want to review all of the stuff that we went over in the video Q&A, it's all in article format, so you can take a look at it there, and it'll kind of reinforce everything that we talked about. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you watching. If you have questions or comments, just comment below. I'll do my best to take a look at them and answer whatever questions that you have. If you're looking for a heavy, light, medium program that's kind of done for you, if you go to my website, again, andybaker.com, you go to training programs, you can download the Garage Gym Warrior program. That is a kind of done for you heavy, light, medium program. It's very simple to operate. It does not require a lot of equipment. If you train in your garage with just a rack and a barbell set, you can do that program. So that's something for you there. And if you're putting together your own program, I hope this helped. And I will talk to you next time, guys. I appreciate it.